Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. So at the beginning of 2024, I listed out 12 of what I was considering my most embarrassing movie blind spots. Films that, for whatever reason, I just hadn't seen yet that I really felt like I should have. So now that we are in April, I have knocked off 4 of those, so averaging 1 a month now, which is really good. Actually, not watching 1 a month, but at least I'm averaging 1 a month. So I'm 4 deep. So I want to share with you guys my thoughts on these 4, and then I will keep doing this throughout the rest of the year as I try to knock all 12 of these off of my watch list. So let's not waste any time at all. Let's dive right into Correcting My Blind Spots, Volume 1. So as we go through these, I thought it would be fun to list my shame rating going at the beginning, and then I'll give you, of course, my star rating at the end. So the first one here is one that I've already talked about in a recent watches video, but after I did that, I realized, you know what, I'd like to have all of these in like the same format. So that's why I'm just going to mention it here, but I will link my full review to this down in the description box below. But first up is Spiral from the Book of Saw from 2021, directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. So frankly, my shame meter on this one is quite low. I only am going to give this 2 out of 10 for my shame rating because it's not that embarrassing, quite frankly, but it's one that I personally really felt like I should have seen already. So I watched this one and I thoroughly enjoyed it. As I talk about in my full review, I think this one is a little bit underrated. I think Bousman does a really nice job of basically turning a police procedural into a Saw film. Yes, there are things that could be better. Most specifically, the traps in this one are pretty forgettable. Frankly, it's now been, I don't know, about a month since I've watched this, and I forget most of the traps already. So the traps are definitely not memorable. But still, I think it's done really well. Chris Rock is excellent in his role. I think him playing in this horror movie, a normally comedic actor, I think is just really interesting, and he does it really well. So I love that. Samuel L. Jackson as his dad is really cool, is also. So I don't know, just really interesting things done with this one, and I don't think it gets nearly enough love. Yes, it is more of a police procedural than a Saw film, but I think it mixes them well enough that it still feels like a Saw film. And like I talked about in my full review, there are moments in this that really harken back to the original sequels, which, of course, Darren Lynn Bousman directed, 2, 3, and 4, I believe. So, I mean, yeah, it definitely feels like a Saw film to me, which I really love. So I am going to give Spiral from the Book of Saw from 2021, 3.5 out of 5 stars. All right, so let's get over now to the new ones. And I watched this one the most recent, but I'm going to talk about it first because honestly, I have no idea what I'm going to say about this as I'm sitting here right now. But this is David Lynch's Eraserhead, his directorial debut, feature film debut from 1977. And this is spine number 725 from the Criterion Collection, which has a really nice release here. So this is one that's been in my collection for quite a while, and I need to spend a lot more time with David Lynch films, which is why this was on my list. I wanted to start at the beginning and kind of work my way through. My embarrassment rating or my shame rating on this one, I'm going to put this at a 4. I don't think this is, necessarily essential viewing for everybody, so I'm going to put this one at a 4. And this was just such a weird movie. I feel like this is one that I need to watch at least one more time to really kind of understand what's going on here. But we are following our main character, Henry, who is pictured on the front here. And he turns out his girlfriend is pregnant. They have this baby, but it's not really a baby. It's this like bird-looking creature thing, and it doesn't stop screaming throughout the night. His girlfriend starts getting angry. She's really super weird also. There's this like sexy neighbor across the hall that's going to play a part in this as well, and he's just trying to survive it all. And it is just unbelievably weird. The things that stand out in this movie, though, the cinematography on this is very interesting to look at. And the sound design is fascinating. It starts off almost silent, and then it works in all these industrial sounds based on where he lives. The screaming and the crying of the baby creature thing goes on. It is just so bananas. This is one of the weirder movies I've seen in quite some time, and frankly, I just don't know what to make of it. I understand, or I respect that this has a cult following, And I kind of understand why that is, I guess, just because it is so out there and it's more of an experience really than a film. It almost reminds me a little bit of 2001: A Space Odyssey in that it's something that you should experience, but it's not necessarily a narrative that's really worth watching. It's just kind of, you got to take in the sight, the visuals, and the audio design on this. And that's really what makes it interesting. But outside of that, the story itself is just, it's not really that important. It's really about what Lynch is able to do with the camera and the setting. There's this great shot in the beginning of our main character walking through this industrial setting, which is where his apartment is. And he just looks so minuscule at the very bottom of the screen. And you have this giant building in the background. It's very interesting. But outside of that, it's not something I could recommend, I guess. I don't know. I'm so torn on this one, which is why I wanted to talk about it first to kind of just get it out of the way, because I just don't know how to talk about this one after only one viewing. So this is one that I probably should watch again. And I've been thinking about trying to watch it again. I'm not excited to spend another, 89 minutes with it. It's just a weird movie. It's done in black and white. And that stark photography that they do with this, that works well. But the narrative, the story of this is just so bananas and out there. I don't even really know what the hell I was watching. This is such a weird film. So I see why it has a cult following. I am not one of the cultists of Eraserhead, though, at least not at this point. So it feels silly giving a movie like this a star rating, but I'm going to do it just for posterity's sake. I'm going to give Eraserhead from 1977 2 out of 5 stars. So let's go backwards 1 year, back to 1976, and talk about a horror classic directed by Richard Donner. We have The Omen. So this one stars Gregory Peck, and I think he is awesome in this. But let me talk about my shame meter first. I'm going to put this at a 6 out of 10, because to me, this is a horror movie that virtually every horror fan should see, because it's just a classic in that regard from that classic horror era of the late 70s. So definitely one that, most horror fans should definitely seek out if you've not seen it. But anyway, so we're following our main family here. I believe Peck plays like an American ambassador who lives overseas. And the opening scene of the film, his wife is giving birth, but the baby dies in child labor. And so he knows that his wife is going to be devastated. So one of the priests that is at this hospital, I guess, that they're at, says, hey, this baby over here, his mom died, and it kind of looks like it could pass as your child. Why don't you take this baby so that it has a home and your wife is not devastated and your wife never has to know? So he decides to do that, and of course that is going to be Damien, our main character throughout this entire series. And weird things start happening. I want to say it's his 6th birthday, somewhere around there. I think it's his 6th birthday because 666, that whole thing. So on his birthday, something weird happens with one of his nannies. She ends up killing herself, which is an awesome moment in the film. It's very stark the way that it's filmed, and it just looks really cool. The special effects on it are great. And from there, things are going to pick up. Gregory Peck's character starts having interactions with this other priest who is trying to warn him. He knows what happened in the hospital way back in the 6 years prior, and so on and so forth. And of course, it's just going to be how does Gregory Peck's character take down this evil? And this is a really good film. It felt epic for what it is. It felt like a large-scale horror movie. And I loved that about it, because a lot of horror films are a lot more intimate, and they don't have that kind of almost adventure feel to them that Richard Donner is able to provide, which, given the fact that it's Donner, that kind of makes sense. That's what he does, right? And so this one felt larger in scale than I really expected it to feel. And the effects work on it is great. It's a big budget horror movie, and it's done quite well. There are not a lot of moments in this where I thought our main character, Damien, was super creepy or anything, but I still think it works well just because it kind of is all done under the surface of our main bad here, which I think is pretty interesting. But not a scary movie, not something I would consider scary at all, but there are some really good moments. There's a scene in a cemetery that I think plays out really well. Richard Wagner's character is great. The way his character kind of evolves toward the end is awesome. I loved that. So there are really good moments throughout this film that I thoroughly enjoyed. So I'm very happy that I finally checked this one out. And again, it is one that all horror fans really should be watching. So that's why I put this one at a 6 out of 10 for embarrassment, or my shame meter, whatever I'm going to call it. But yeah, definitely like this one. So I am going to give The Omen from 1976 3.5 out of 5 stars. And now, as I'm sitting here, my buddy and I were just talking. We just got back from the movies, from a different movie, but we need to go see the first Omen because that one just came out recently, which is why I ended up watching this one right now, because I need to go see the first Omen in theaters, but I figured I better watch at least the original before I move on to the prequel. So anyway, I'll talk about that when I end up seeing it. And last but not least today is, frankly, the movie that got the most comments, I think, on my original video, which really surprised me. Coming into that, I would have probably put this film on my shame meter at probably about a 7 out of 10, but after reading all those comments, that was really the one that stuck in people's craw the most. I just couldn't believe I hadn't seen Rocky. So I'm going to put my shame meter at an 8 out of 10. This one is also from 1996, of course, the Best Picture winner, which I'll talk about that in a minute, but directed by John G. Avildsen, I believe is how you would say his name, but written by our main character, Sylvester Stallone. So this, of course, is a boxing movie. Everybody knows what Rocky is about. I don't think I really need to explain it, but we have our main character trying to make it in the world of boxing, and on the side, he's like this small-time enforcer, essentially, for this, what appears to be like a mob character of some sort. And eventually, Apollo Creed decides that he wants to have a fight in Philadelphia, and it decides because his opponent cannot fight anymore, he's going to pick a random fighter from the area in order to have his big fight with. And he likes Rocky's name, so he ends up picking Rocky to fight against. And that was one thing about this movie that I don't know if I loved, was how random and easily Rocky ends up in this fight. The way Creed comes up with it, it's literally in the film, maybe 60 seconds of him thinking about what he's going to do after he finds out that his original fighter can't do it. And then he comes up with this brilliant idea of just having a no-name person fight him, which of course he expects that he's going to win handedly. That part was just kind of odd to me. And I think throughout the entire film, that's what I kept thinking. It just felt a little clunky. It felt a little bit clunkier than I was expecting it to feel, which I know a lot of people are going to disagree with, and I totally respect that. And I didn't dislike the movie because of it, but it's something I noticed as I was going through it. Some of the dialogue in it is a little bit clunky. Some of the way Rocky ends up in this fight is clunky. Just weird moments with his friend and his girlfriend, that's going to be clunky a little bit as the story progresses. And the way, I don't know, just the way things play out, I thought was so strange, but it still works. It works really well. I can see why this is a beloved film amongst, film lovers, because this is the perfect underdog story. This is one that I'd heard how it ended, of course, because how would you avoid spoilers on this? But that didn't really affect my viewing of this at all. And by the end of it, once you get to the conclusion, it's really not about winning or losing. It's about kind of the relationships that he builds along the way and what he is attempting to do. Right before the fight, he actually says his goal is not to do X, but to do Y. And he does, is able to accomplish those things. And so I think he's a winner, and that's always a good story to watch. So I get why people love this movie. I don't love it, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a well-done film, and I absolutely want to watch through the rest of the franchise now. It's just a matter of getting around to them. I really want to get to the one with Hulk Hogan in it. Like, that's the one I just want to watch through the rest just to get to that part. I want to say that's like, 3 or 4? I don't know. You guys will let me know down below. But anyway, yeah, so this is most fascinating to me about this film is the fact that this won Best Picture because it was in 1976. So it went up against movies like All the President's Men, Network, and most importantly, this film beat Taxi Driver for Best Picture in 1976. Like, that genuinely blows my mind. How someone could put this film above Taxi Driver is insane to me, but hey, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, of course. But honestly, I would put All the President's Men and Taxi Driver above Rocky for 1976. Network, I have seen. That was another nominee. I have seen, but I was back in high school. I don't really remember it all that much. And then the other one in there was called Bound for Glory, which I'd never even heard of until I was doing research after watching this. And so that'll be one. I actually just picked it up on DVD because I need to watch it. So that'll be one I watch soon also, because I'm curious, like, how does this beat out? And where does Bound for Glory sit in there, along with Network, which I need to rewatch? So, yeah, for me, it'd be Taxi Driver, All the President's Men, Rocky, and then I have to rewatch Bound for Glory and Network. But yeah, the fact that this one Best Picture is just fascinating to me. So, anyway, great movie, really well done. Not my favorite thing I've ever seen, that's for sure, but I definitely appreciate it, and I definitely want to continue on. Oh, and that's the other thing. I never sat down and watched this from start to finish, but I have seen a lot of this movie. As I was going through this, a lot of different things were hitting me. It's like, oh yeah, I remember my dad was watching this when I was much, much younger, and I remember some of these scenes as I'm going through it. So, you know, not a completely blind movie for me. I did remember some things, but the end was definitely new to me. I didn't remember that. And I just loved Apollo Creed. That character was so interesting. So, I don't know. It's a good film. I am going to give Rocky from 1976 3.5 out of 5 stars. All right, so we are now 4 in of my 12 that I need to watch this year. So good start to things. Nothing I've really disliked. Even Eraserhead, which I gave 2 stars. I didn't hate that movie. It was odd. And I don't know that I was ready for it, I guess. But let me know how wrong I am about Rocky. Let me know why it's a 5-star film. Let me know what you think about Eraserhead, another one that I'm sure many of you will think I'm wrong on. And that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not saying your opinion is wrong and mine is right. I'm probably wrong if anyone's wrong, quite frankly. But anyway, I'm really glad I watched these. And so I cannot wait to the next batch that I get through. I've been kind of holding off on watching those because I wanted to talk through these first. So now I am free to jump on to some new ones in my 12 most embarrassing. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below. What do you think of these 4 films and anything else that you think I must add to my watch list that is not in my embarrassing list? Let me know that down below. Maybe that can end up on either next year's list, or hell, if I get through these in quick enough, I'll make another embarrassing list for this year that I'll try to finish. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. Before you take off, if you could hit that like button down below, that engagement really does help me out. But with that said, before you go, I want to encourage you all to consume some media today, especially focused this time on some of your blind spots that maybe you feel like you should have watched, but for whatever reason you haven't. It feels good to knock these off the list. I will catch you all next time.